The rain should abate in the afternoon. That's a word my father likes using. Now we've got a lot of texts coming in. We're going to be talking to Kevin Kearsey from the IFA in a second about climate change, and we're going to be talking also to Margaret Coffey and Donal Connolly of the Dungarvan Care of the Aged. Mitchell O'Brien is coming in to talk about personal insolvency matters, and we'll be talking to Karen Gallagher from the Residential Tenancy Board. So if anybody is a tenant or if you're a landlord, you'll want to hear what we have to say on that. Firstly, on the cyclists, the danger cyclists may be under. May I also ask cyclists to use cycle lanes on the road and not the footpath, please? And light up, says Richie. I live in Kilmead and travel the main road into Waterford a lot. There's often a large group of cyclists, more than two abreast. What's the rule for them? Hi Damien, we passed a cyclist on the Cork Road the other evening in the dark. He had no real rear light or reflective gear on. That's from Anne. Damien, are cyclists not breaking the law when cycling two abreast when a car is trying to overtake them? Damien, I've no problem with cyclists, but they should wear high-vis vests. That's from Brendan. Damien, I do a good bit of cycling myself and I'm 100% behind the new laws, but it has to work both ways. The amount of times I've seen cyclists go through red lights around the town is incredible. And Sean has said, are we going to get fined if we pass a cyclist on the outer ring road under the 1.5 metre regulation? The question here is, should they not be cycling on the cycle path and not on the carriageway? On the outer ring road around the city, there is not a cycle path for a lot of it. There is for some of it. So you have an issue there, Sean. What's going to happen there? I think we'll have to wait and see. Now we've got Kevin on the line. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, Damien.
Thank you very much for joining us. Kevin Kearsey, Waterford. Are you chairperson of the IFA in Waterford, Kevin?
Chairperson Waterford IFA, correct, Damien, yes.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Where are you farming and what are you farming, just to let people know?
I'm farming in Carl's Cross, near Kilmacthomas, and we have a dairy farm, and we keep our own male stock, and we bring them up to beef or up to store stage.
Very good. And do you mind me asking, Kevin, have you increased your dairy herd over the past 5 years?
No, we have a small increase, but not significantly, no.
OK. And what do you think when you see the programmes? Did you see the hot air programme last night or other programmes where farming and agriculture is, I suppose, getting a lot of blame for the greenhouse gas emissions percentage that is prevalent at present, particularly in Ireland? What have you got to say to that?
Well, I mean, that goes to say that we are big emitters of greenhouse gases. But when you look on a per capita basis, we look very, very much on the wrong side. But then we have a low population in the country, and we are predominantly an agricultural country. So our main production in the country is cattle production, you could say, and put that against the low population. So our per capita is going to look very high. But look, the programs are very interesting. It is a major issue, and we all have to take account of climate change. But it's not only farming, in my view. I think we all, as a population, need to do something about it. And look, I was taken aback when I heard in one of the programs, I heard a family from Dublin talking about what they were doing about recycling, but they only started doing this thing about recycling in recent times. Now, we've been talking about recycling for the last 20 years, and we should not, even now, we have to talk about recycling. It should have been done. And as from a farming point of view, we have been recycling for over 20 years on a continuous basis.
Yes.
So the other issue there is, I mean, look, I went to Dungarvan early last week, one morning, and the number of cars I passed travelling to work, and I understand people have to go to work in Waterford, but the number of people were only single-person cars. And, you know, where's carpooling in this day and age to cater for it? I mean, transport is also a major emitter. It is. Gases.
There's a lot of issues there. Now, livestock farming contributes 18% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide, OK? That's 18%, and they're undisputed figures. In Ireland, it's 33%, OK? Now, the Environmental Protection Agency, I don't think anybody will query their figures. They believe that this percentage will increase. For example, by 2030, the plan is to increase the national dairy herd by another 22%. So the government strategy is to increase the dairy herd by another 22%. Now, for people that don't know, you would agree with this, Kevin, that grass is a cheap way to feed cows. But as meat and oxygens break down grass in the stomach, it produces methane. And methane, as we know, is one of the contributory factors for greenhouse gases. So does it not follow, Kevin, that if you're going to have more cows, you're going to have more methane, and you are going to increase the greenhouse gas emissions? So whatever you say about transport and other factors and recycling, you're 100% right on that. But regarding agriculture, as the third, it contributes a third in Ireland's greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to get fined for this. We're going to get massive fines for this. So what do you have to say to it? How do you square that you're going to increase the dairy herd by 22% in the next 10 years, and then you're going to talk about reducing methane and greenhouse gas emissions from farming? That's not going to happen.
Well, I'll put it this: it may, if we do reach another 22%, and I query that. But look, we will leave that aside. But what we have to look at, we're looking at.
Sorry, Kevin, just 1 second, Kevin. We can't leave that aside. This is the strategy. This is government, IFA, Department of Agriculture strategy. It's not. You can't just leave it aside.
Okay. But let's look at it this way. We're looking at it from an Irish point of view, what Ireland produces in greenhouse gases. But maybe we should look at it from a world point of view. The world will want food, and the world it is predicted that the consumption of dairy is going to grow in around 2% per annum going forward. So dairy is going to be produced someplace in the world. Now, Ireland is the most economic from a carbon point of view. It is the most economic producer of dairy in Europe, and I would say possibly in the world also. So this dairy is going to be produced anyway. So why produce it in a country that's producing far more carbon to produce a litre of milk than Ireland is producing? That's the argument I put through, that we are by far the most efficient at producing milk. From a carbon point of view, not a monetary point of view, but from a carbon point of view, we're the most efficient. And when it comes to beef, we're in the top 5 in Europe at efficiency when it comes to carbon. Now, beef and dairy are going to be consumed. The man from the Friends of the Earth was on last night talking about artificial foods. Now, we can go down. If we want to go down that road, we're talking about human health, and maybe that's not a discussion for this morning. But by and large, people in the world will want food. They want the natural foods, and they're going to be produced someplace in the world. So I would say let us produce them because we are efficient, and we are not producing as much carbon to produce that a kilo of meat or litre of milk than in other parts of the world.
Well, there are other studies that will show that if you do have intensive farming in certain respects, then you may be able to give over other aspects of the land to, for example, forestry and to other areas that will create a greenhouse gas reduction. So there could be an argument for intensive farming. And others were on the programme last night talking about biodiversity. And I know there's lots of farmers that are involved in REP schemes and lots of other things there with that. But the World Health Organization, you wanted to go on to a world scale about this. So let's go on the world scale, Kevin. New analysis shows that while meat and dairy provide just 18% of calories and 37% of protein for people across the world, it uses the vast majority, 83% of farmland, and produces 60% of agriculture's greenhouse gas emissions. So 86% of all land mammals are now livestock or humans. So even the lowest impact meat and dairy products still cause more environmental harm than, for example, sustainable vegetable or cereal growing. What about that?
Well, it depends. It depends what facts you're throwing up against it. But the point I will just make to you is that people today and for the foreseeable future will want animal proteins. They'll want animal proteins. And there's a vast number of people in the world who want natural proteins from, i.e., grass-fed animals, animals that are outdoors, almost organic. People want that type of food.
Yes.
So, look, we can do it here in this country, and why not promote it? Promote it as a healthy food, as I said, grass-fed, open air, animals out in the open air. As regards forestry, I agree with you. We should have far more forestry in this country. But I think farmers need to be incentivized to grow forests. The problem with forests at the moment in Ireland is they are generally funded by funds, investment funds,
yes,
who are putting monies into forests and not the farmers. We need to get farmers growing more trees.
And what about
I
this?
agree with that.
Yeah. Sorry.
There are lands in the country that are not. They're poor land, wetland areas that are not capable of carrying stock, and those lands should be put over to forestry.
Kevin, what about this announcement that we're going to increase beef exports to China? And people will say this is good economically for some farmers, and yet you're going to have, I suppose, a bigger carbon footprint. I know there's 266,000 flights in and out of Ireland every year, and people talk about the emissions that come from airplanes. But is it right that we're celebrating the increase in tenfold increase potentially over the next few years in exports to China of beef products?
Well, look, we have to celebrate it insofar as, let's hope it works out, that we will get more beef into China. China is a huge market. At the moment, China is under huge pressure because of the loss of the pig population in China. So they are very much short of animal proteins over there. And there is going to be a demand for animal protein in China. So let's get there and let's get our product over there and try and get benefit. We've had it on your radio program. We've all seen it, what beef farmers are suffering in Ireland over the last 2 years or more. And look, this is an opportunity for them to get something back.
Do you think, finally, Kevin, the IFA have traditionally been very, very good. I used to work on Ear to the Ground at putting out a very strong message, putting out the right message for farmers. Do you think farmers and farming organisations are now going to be coming under a fierce pressure to respond to the growing climate change message, and that a lot of farmers and farming organisations may be seen as the bad people in this?
Yeah, farmers are going to be under pressure and the farm organisations are going to be under pressure. But look, we have to recognise there is an issue here with climate, and we're not backing away from that issue, but we're working with it. And farmers are doing, and IFA are promoting, taking actions that will help limit the climate change that is happening to our world. I mean, we're not ignoring it, and we're not running away from it. We are actively involved in trying to play our part in limiting climate change.
Well, then, would you be actively involved in not wanting a 22% increase in the dairy herd?
Well, look, as I said, Damien, if people want protein, if people want dairy in the world, and it's going to be produced, why not let us produce it?
We need more cows, yeah, that's what you're saying. Okay. Kevin, we'll come back to you. Listen, thanks very much.
Okay, you're welcome, Damien.
I really appreciate it.
You.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Kevin Kearsey there from the IFA in Waterford. Damien, the reason livestock uses so much land is because most land isn't arable like the west of Ireland. Damien, get your listeners to watch the Leonardo DiCaprio film Netflix. It's called Cowspiracy. It is very, very strong. That is from Tommy. Damien, about cycling on the outer ring road, maybe it would be easier just to break the rules of the road and use the outside lane and just drive through the roundabouts in the wrong lane, like a lot of people do anyway, without any consequences, therefore not having any issue with the cyclists. That's from Sean in the city. Thank you, Sean. Keep your texts and comments coming in. 083 333 975. We are live from the Vodafone Gigabit Broadband studio in Dungarvan. Now, welcome back to the programme. We are live from the Vodafone Gigabit Broadband studio in Dungarvan. We're going to be talking to Margaret and Donal in a second. Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Thanks very much for coming in to us. It's still raining outside, it is.
It is.
Spitting a bit.
Spitting away, yeah.
We just had a caller into 051 846 123. Helen's her name. She rang to say her daughter was driving home recently and a car in front of her with bikes attached on the back of the car. The bikes became loose and they missed her windscreen by millimetres. A very frightening experience. So cyclists that are transporting bikes should ensure that they are attached securely, and that is a person texting in about that. Damien, please inform the listeners that the lines layout have changed for the roundabouts on the outer ring road. Damien, I don't dispute that climate change exists, but I do find it funny that scientists are telling us all about it. Sometimes the same scientists that are sending rockets to the moon and space and other planets. But they don't tell us about the damage that is doing. Damien, I'm sick of forestry all around me where I live. The country view is cut off regarding trees. Planning permission should be sought for planting such trees as for new houses. Thank you very much for that. And Damien, carpooling is hard to do with people working on shifts, etc. We'll come to more of your texts in a few minutes. Firstly, Donal Connolly, chairperson of Dungarvan Care of the Aged, Margaret Coffey, manager of the centre here in Dungarvan. Donal, what does Care of the Aged do? Explain, please, a little bit what it does.
The Dungarvan Care of the Aged, Damien, has been in existence since 1992, in fact, and they provide a range of services for senior citizens. And I suppose principal among those would be a nutritious meal each day. Annually now we would be supplying roughly 24,000 meals to senior citizens in Dungarvan and the surrounding area.
24,000?
Exactly, in the year.
Wow.
Every year. And we've been doing that every year for the past 5 or 6 years, I suppose. It jumped probably from about 10 or 12,000 5 or 6 years ago to the 24,000 now. And of that 24,000, about 8,000 or 9,000 would be to the people who actually visit the day centre. And the rest would be delivered by way of Meals on Wheels to people's homes. And it's all delivered and all supplied for a very reasonable cost of €6 per day per person. So it's a fantastic value.
Margaret, you can't underestimate the value psychologically and physically of a good meal.
Absolutely,
of
Damien.
A nice dinner.
Of a nice dinner, and I must say, actually, now that I get the opportunity, the dinners are cooked fresh every day in the centre. We're very lucky to have a fabulous chef, Elaine. She's extraordinary, and I'll be talking about her again in a few minutes. But yes, a fresh cooked meal and the company while you eat it means everything, because now you're not sitting alone at a table. And you're in company, so you'll eat even without realising it. So company and food definitely are the two things that keeps us all going.
Because, and we did a bit with the CC House on this recently as well, it's that communal thing, and it's that thing that sometimes when people get older, and maybe their partner, their wife, their husband has died, they don't feel like cooking for one. And they just, and you can slip very easily into a kind of a morass, a kind of a habit of, I'll be grand. And then your health will start failing, and psychologically you'll go backwards.
Absolutely.
I suppose the huge advantages I see, Damien, of the Deise Daycare Centre and even other daycare centres is they enable a far greater number of people to live in their own homes in comfort and dignity for much longer than they might otherwise be able to do. And it's saving the state significant money, as well as, giving much greater, because most people would prefer to stay in their own homes. Nobody really wants to go into, and nursing homes can be excellent and all that, but very few people want to go into a nursing home if they can avoid it. So the big advantage of the Deise Daycare Centre is enabling many more people to live in their own homes in dignity and comfort, because apart from the meals, we also give a fabulous social outlet to people to come out into the day centre, to meet their friends, to talk, to converse, to dance, to be in the arts, to a whole range of service, which Margaret can talk about in much more detail.
And we have some news regarding what you're going to be doing this weekend. It's the reason we got you in. But tell me a little bit about some of the things that you do, Margaret, please.
Well, we have lots of things. Have you much time, Damien, is the thing, because I could actually nearly talk about the day centre for the day, and I absolutely love it. I'm working with Dungarvan Care of the Aged probably going on 13 years, and as the saying goes, find something you like doing in your life and you'll never work. Something like that, anyway. You know what I mean? So I don't, it's not work to me. I enjoy it so much. I enjoy being with the people so much.
Just give me a quick run through.
A quick run through, yes. Like I said, I could talk all day. Well, we have a choir, and now I go back to Elaine, because Elaine Cummins is our chef, but she's also our choir maestro, and along with a volunteer that plays the music for the choir. So every Thursday the choir meets. So we have our own Deise choir, they're called Young at Heart, and
who plays the music?
Michael. Sorry, I should have mentioned. Special mention to Michael Casey, because without him we wouldn't be able to.
And there are so many volunteers that help out as well. Too many to mention, but there's volunteers that help out across the services.
100%, yes, 100%, and that would have been something that I would have to mention, because without them, down through the years, we wouldn't have been able to do without volunteers. So the choir, the carol singing, we have bingo, pool, arts and crafts, painting, reflection, yoga. We have this company that's a national company, Sail Blue they're called, and they come in every week and they do physical exercise with the elderly. Yeah. We also have hairdressing and chiropody services in-house as well. We also have a tri-bike, which was through WLP, Waterford Leader Partnership, and Peter Jones.
What's a tri-bike? A
tri-bike. It's we call it Saoirse. For freedom, and so the tri-bike is tri. So one cycles it, right. And 2 people sit in the front.
Right.
It's amazing. So we have lots of volunteers that come up on any given day when it's fine and take out people on short little spins. Little spins, and they just thoroughly enjoy it. But we have one I must mention in particular. He's a member as well, but he is a guy that cycles the bike, Eddie Moore. And actually Eddie, and we want to congratulate Eddie and wish him the best of luck, because he's in the awards in a couple of weeks' time, the PPN awards for the Billy McCarthy awards. So we're wishing Eddie all the best on that one.
Yeah. We must do a piece with you now with that tri-bike at some stage. You don't do like the Specsavers ad. There's no Zumba. There's no young girl coming in. Everybody gets dancing up and doing Zumba. No, that hasn't happened yet.
No.
Should have gone to Specsavers. No. There's lots more besides. We'll touch on a few more things in a second. Firstly, the major thing about this weekend, Saturday, November the 30th, Pride of Place Awards. Donal, this is a major achievement for the group.
It is. We were absolutely thrilled, I suppose, last year when we won the overall community awards competition in the county, and as a result we were nominated by the county council to be there in one of their entries in the Pride of Place competition, which is a national competition that recognises voluntary work and the major impact that volunteers provide right throughout the country. So we're in the final of that, obviously, next on the 30th of November, and that's being held in Dublin, and we certainly hope that we'll be successful. Obviously, there's very stiff competition in that particular competition, as it's an All-Ireland 32-county competition.
Cooperation Ireland, as you say, run
by Cooperation
I know this
Ireland.
because being involved in Passage East before, we got to the finals of that. That's and in the different sections it's extremely tough. Well done in getting there. That's the first thing, and the very best of luck with it. Yes. See how it goes.
And I suppose I'd just like, as Margaret said, to pay tribute to the volunteers and as well to my fellow members on the board of Waterford, the Care of the Aged company, who have been working, I suppose, for, as I say, back since 1992.
All the board members. A texter here says, a relative of mine is a service user at the Deise Daycare Centre, and it's the best thing that's happened to her. The friendship, care and wonderful management of staff are so great. They get a beautiful hot meal, tea, scones and all sorts of nice food. Well done, Margaret and Donal, and for everybody concerned. A texter, it's a pity the bus for the daycare centre can't come out as far as Kilrossenty. I suppose you'd like to be able to get people in from Kilrossenty in different places.
Oh yeah, well we're looking, I suppose we're all the time examining that, Damien, to see how we can extend our services. And in fact, we'd like to thank Local Link as well, who helps us in getting people into the centre, as well as our own transport system. But as well, we feel that a greater role maybe could be played by some community groups, community development groups, and we would love to arrive at a situation where we might be able to deliver meals to particular community centres or community areas, and then volunteers might be able to take them out to people in their area, like Kilrossenty or other areas like that.
That's a lovely idea, great idea. Mm-hmm. Margaret, you're really enjoying it.
I really am enjoying it. Yes, I am, and I love helping people. You know, that's why I think, you know, when the phone rings and someone is looking for a meal delivery or whatever, or wanting their family member or what to come in, I love to be able to help them, and I love to be able to achieve that goal of getting them into the centre, number one, but getting the hot meal and getting that nourishment, because it does mean everything, you know. So,
what's on the menu today?
On the menu today is breaded chicken.
Lovely.
And vegetables and mash, and actually I'm not too sure what's on that. She'll kill me. Sorry, Elaine. She'll kill me for not knowing what's on the menu.
Margaret Coffey, thanks so much. Donal Connolly, great to see you, Donal. People would know you from the council as well in the past.
And we just like to acknowledge our funders, I suppose.
The fundraisers and all the volunteers and everybody who contributes money.
And we get funding from the HSE, from Pubble and from the local Lions Club. and we'd like to thank them all very much for that. And all anybody who
any
gives us
donations as well, because I know a lot of people give donations as well.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and good luck with the competition and the awards.
Thank you very much, Damien. Thank you.
I must pop down for a meal someday, actually.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, pop up someday.
I will.
Margaret said pop up someday.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Vodafone Gigabit Broadband Studio in Dungarvan. Richie in Abbeyside has texted in, I'm so grateful to the daycare centre for allowing me to be part of the choir. Another texter, Damien, carpooling is hard to do because so many people are working shifts. As for the climate change programmes, so far they're very interesting but one-sided on the issue of timber frame houses instead of using concrete. For example, check out the amount of concrete used in erecting a turbine. No mention of that. That is from Ed. Keep your texts and comments coming in. Now we're going to talk to Karen Gallagher. Karen with a C, Residential Tenancies Board for training landlords and responsibilities. And this will be interesting for anybody who's a tenant or is a landlord. Karen is on the line. Karen, how are you? Hi, good morning.
So my name is Karen Gallagher, and I work on the communications and research side for the Residential Tenancies Board. And what the RTB is it's the regulator of the rental sector. But increasingly, an important part of our role is to support landlords and tenants and assist them really in understanding their rights and responsibilities. And one of the functions that I suppose comes in within my world is trying to let everyone know, what they're supposed to be doing to comply with the law and what happens, if there's an issue arises within a tenancy. Yeah. And another core aspect of the role is that there is of the RTB is that if there are issues that arise, then landlords and tenants can come to the RTB for dispute resolution services, and some of that is free. You can get free mediation services which are confidential and available at no cost.
You're like a referee, I suppose, sometimes in the middle of it. You're not representing either side as such, are you?
No, our role is to be completely independent and impartial. So the law, kind of sets out the rights and responsibilities for landlords and tenants, and the RTB's role is to support that, kind of with a quasi-judicial function. So it is based in law, but the role of the RTB is to impartially regulate that, and obviously our dispute resolution service, there's an independent panel who hear cases, who operate confidential mediation and try to get the best outcomes for both landlords and tenants. And to be fair, a lot of the landlords and tenants and calls that come to us are about people trying to find out what they should be doing, because it's a very complicated landscape out there.
Yes.
And that's why we've been trying to promote the courses that we have, the information sessions, and the website and everything to help. Yeah,
like it's rtb.ie if anybody wants to contact rtb.ie, and you have a course coming up in November, Saturday the 23rd, is it?
We do indeed. So this is a voluntary landlord accreditation course. It's called Better Let, and it's a one-day course for landlords from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday the 23rd of November at the Kilkenny River Court Hotel. And what the objective of that is to offer landlords the opportunity to come and spend the day basically to find out just what they should be doing, tips and helpful information, both to try and navigate the law, and find out what they should be doing and their rights and responsibilities in terms of managing tenancies, and also to there's a lot of resources supplied, so a lot of information, some templates and resources to help landlords in managing their tenancies, and also to assist them in navigating their way through if an issue does arise and how to prevent disputes happening in the first place.
One thing we'll just focus on for a minute is the rent pressure zones. I know there's been one put in Kilkenny and Carlow, and also we've had Waterford City here. Do the rules apply differently in a rent pressure zone for landlords than they would in a non-rent pressure zone?
They do, and so it's important for landlords to be very aware of this as well, because in a rent pressure zone, you can only increase the rent by 4% per annum, and there are only certain situations that you can actually apply an exemption. And so there are 68% of all tenancies now are covered by the rent pressure zone measures. So it's really important that landlords can know that and check, basically, first of all, is the rental home in a rent pressure zone? first of all, and you can do that by going on to rtb.ie, and there's not only is there a calculator that will calculate and see if the property is in a rent pressure zone, but it will also let landlords and tenants know what the appropriate rent is that should be charged, because unless the property is exempt, which means if it's new to the market or hasn't been let in the last 2 years, or if there's been a substantial change to the nature of that accommodation, or if it's a protected structure, there's very specific circumstances that the property then or the rent can be increased by more than 4%. So important for landlords and tenants to check the website, check the rent calculator, and make sure that they're very aware of kind of the rent that they're charging.
Yeah, we had a little piece about Airbnbs recently. Do they come under your ambit?
So Airbnbs would be short-term lettings. So if I suppose it's where there's a tenancy arising that the tenancy would need to be registered with the RTB, and generally Airbnbs would be short-term let, so they wouldn't come under the jurisdiction of the RTB. So
yes, in your work, Karen, do you find there's varying degrees, or how big a disparity is there between a good landlord and a bad landlord?
I suppose we spend an awful lot of time out there talking to landlords and tenants, and the majority of landlord and tenant relationships are working very well. We just had a piece of research there published in the summer where we did a survey of landlords and tenants, and 84% of landlords told us that they, were very satisfied with their existing tenants, and 86% of tenants said they were happy with their current landlord. So I suppose what I'd say is the majority of landlord and tenant relationships work very well. There are only 2% of tenancies end in dispute with the RTB, but you do get landlords and tenants that don't behave well, do not kind of, I suppose, follow what they should be doing. And I suppose it's those cohort of people that are either operating when they, in a way where they don't know what they should be doing, don't know what the rent should be, for example, don't know their responsibilities under the law. And then you get people that are actively and, deliberately trying to flout the law. And I suppose the RTB now, from the 1st of July, has powers to investigate and sanction landlords where there are very, clear, where we can see that there are clear breaches of the law. And before we had to wait for tenants to come to us, but now the RTB has new powers under the Act where we can proactively investigate. So I suppose from my own experience, the majority of landlords and tenants get on very well. There are no issues, and where there are issues, they can normally be rectified and worked through to the mutual, satisfaction of both.
Yes.
But then where there are a small cohort of landlords and tenants that, through ignorance or deliberately, then will try and avoid and flout the law.
Who are the worst type of tenants?
Well, what we would say to tenants is where there are maybe issues, we would always say continue to pay your rent, which sometimes sounds counterproductive if there's an issue with some repairs or maintenance. But if there are issues arising in a tenancy, the tenant must still continue to pay the rent. And I suppose I suppose that's where rent arrears build up. That's very difficult to resolve once things have gone too far. And, you can, as I said, access free mediation. So we would be saying at the start, where there are problems, kind of where if a landlord has put the rent up and you're not sure as a tenant if it's appropriate or if it's too much, you can check that very quickly with us. And you can also bring a case to us. And likewise, if there's an issue with a tenant in terms of their breaching their responsibilities within the tenancy, it's very easy to come to us and try and either we'll look for mediation within the tenancy and try and rectify it early. And that's what we would always say. Not only try and come to us early to rectify the matter, but if there's a new tenancy, a lot of the problems that arise are where people aren't clear about what they should have been doing in the first place. And that's why Better Let is a very useful course for landlords as well, because we set out very clearly, this is what you should be doing, at the start of a tenancy, during a tenancy, to avoid any disputes arising. And, as I said, we have a lot of resources to help landlords to understand that.
rtb.ie, and Saturday 23rd of November, River Court Hotel. Karen Gallagher, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks very much, Damien.
Thank you very much, Karen, and apologies for the little bit of the hiss on the line there. Brian, who's a farmer from Waterford, texted in, Damien, how can other countries tell us Irish farmers that we're the ones polluting when 90% of everything we produce is consumed in other countries? We are feeding countries. We do the best and the greenest of any country. Brian, strong points, good point. We might give you a call someday. I'd like you to discuss this. And we had a good discussion with Kevin this morning. And like I said, it's one of those major issues that is going to be a big political and social topic over the coming months and years. Now, an important message from Tomás O'Coran from On Rhine. Damien, it might be no harm to mention, for any delivery lorries or anyone not attending the funeral in Old Parish, it's on at 12. Please avoid the road for a mile on either side of the church until at least 2 o'clock. The crowd and the congestion is going to be very large. And also, due to the very bad inclement weather, the fields are inaccessible. So if you're in and around theOnshanafubble area this afternoon, expect really big delays. And if you're parking to try and get to that funeral, they normally would open the fields, and they've got very good community air that they organise fields for the church, but the fields are inaccessible due to the heavy weather, and it is raining still in Dungarvan here. On cyclists, the number of callers 051 846 123. Caller says he regularly encounters cyclists cycling 3 abreast and can't count the amount of times he's nearly ended up in the ditch because of it. He's a motorcyclist as well and says it's ludicrous at this stage. On the daycare centre, a caller says they're doing great work in Dungarvan, but he'd love to see a daycare centre in Kilmac and the daycare centre in Kilmac better supported. Caller says she's a farmer's wife, can't understand why all the feedstuffs her animals come wrapped in plastic, and why can't companies make them recyclable? That is a very good point. Back with your personal insolvency matters. Now I'm going to be talking to Mitchell O'Brien in a second. Firstly, a shout out. Breakfast in Ballysaggart this Sunday morning, November the 17th. 17th of November at 10:15, a fundraise for Ballysaggart GA on their intermediate Munster Championship journey. It's in the schoolhouse in Ballysaggart. Come along and enjoy a hearty breakfast, a cuppa and a chat. They haven't even asked me to read that out. I saw it on Twitter. The reason I think it's important to read that out, that Ballysaggart, for a small community, a small club, are doing amazing work. And if there's any businesses around West Waterford or any part of the county that can lend some money to support Ballysaggart on their amazing journey, please do. Also, don't forget the quiz tonight in the Dunmore Road. Myself and Matt asking the questions on the Premier League. Mitchell O'Brien, good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Personal insolvency practitioner. This is part of our MABS project and MABS fortnightly things that we have on. We're going to deal with mortgage arrears with each specific mortgage lender. Tell me first about Start Mortgages. They've recently purchased a lot of the PTSB mortgage loans, did they?
They've purchased 2 tranches of loans. One was 10,700 loans, and the second tranche of that was about 950. So we're up there around 11,000 loans where people have a new mortgage lender. And I suppose it's important for everybody to realise that this is a new environment for Start Mortgages as well, whereas they were a significant player in the market beforehand. This would have at least doubled the size of their loan books, and they are extremely anxious to resolve wherever possible mortgage arrears cases for people.
And these represent approximately 20% of all so-called vulture fund-owned family home mortgages. How is this going to affect people, do you think, Mitchell?
Well, I suppose that I had a meeting with senior executives from Start Mortgages. They visited our practice here in Dungarvan 2 weeks ago. And they agreed that they have a job of work to do, I suppose, to rehabilitate their brand. They would have been known as quite aggressive in the past, but they've taken the view that with the new laws that have been passed, particularly a new one this summer, the Land and Conveyancing Law Reform Act 2019, that it's not in their best interests anymore to move directly for repossession. They will seek to repossess where there isn't engagement, but they now are welcoming people to approach personal insolvency practitioners, and they are agreeable to the types of restructures that a personal insolvency practitioner will present to them.
So do those that are in arrears, do they have to do anything at present, or should they just wait?
No, they should immediately contact either MABS directly with a request to be referred to a personal insolvency practitioner, or they should contact the PIP directly themselves. The beauty for a borrower who is in mortgage arrears and dealing with their mortgage arrears issue through a personal insolvency practitioner is that any other debts that they have will also be addressed in the process. So when you come out of a personal insolvency arrangement, and in many cases that can be within a 12-month period, the only loan payment that you have is your restructured lower mortgage home payment, and you have no more payments to your credit union, no more payments to a credit card with the likes of Bank of Ireland or AIB or Cabot or Avid card or any of those.
Mitchell, thanks so much for joining us this morning. How can people contact you? Mabs.ie is the general email address, and in terms of locally in Waterford or Dungarvan?
Locally, irs-ireland.com or 076 602 7900, and we're here to help.
Mitchell O'Brien, as ever, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Damien. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Mitchell O'Brien, personal insolvency practitioner. Now, a little mention specially. Noel Brown sent me a message, and I didn't get to read it out earlier in the week. I think this was last week. Damien, if you get a chance, please, can you say thanks to the three young lads my mother said in their late teens or early 20s who went out of their way on a Thursday recently at around 4:45pm to help my mother, who's 92, hale and hearty, after she'd a bad fall on the footpath on the side entrance to Super Value Kilbarry on the Ring Road across from Mr. Price. She caught her toe on a rough piece of ground and got a nasty slap on the side of the head and the shoulder. Noel, who's a photographer, people would know him in Waterford, sent me in a picture, and she did get a real nasty slap. Hope you're recovering. They were walking along. They might be WIT students, but they rang for assistance. They stayed with her until help arrived. She'd love to thank them, as she said, all they ever hear about is uncaring young people are and how uncaring young people are today. She couldn't get over their kindness. It was a neighbour of hers that they rang. She could not think of the number. She was in such shock, and Noel then collected her there, brought her to the emergency department at UHW, where she was looked after superbly in a short space of time. Noel wants to thank all the people in UHW as well there in the emergency department, as his mother does as well. Thankfully, she'd no broken bones, but was fairly shook up. Cuts and bruises, but thank you very much. Again, thanks to all those young people for their help. That's from Noel Brown. Hear, hear.